Hey, and welcome to the highlights of episode number 115 with Jason and Colleen Wachob. Some of my favorite parts of this episode were when they shared their top tips on how they live and work together. I also loved when they shared how they keep their relationship exciting and fresh after so many years together. And I love what they do to fill themselves up so that they can show up as the best version of themselves for themselves and each other. But there is so much more wisdom and inspiration that you get in the full episode. So, to listen to the full podcast and get all the info in the show notes, head to melissaambrosini.com/115 right now. Jason and Colleen, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you guys on today. Now, I'm so excited to chat to you guys, and I am a sucker for a real juicy love story. So can you take us back to how you guys met and where the love story of Jason and Colleen began?
So we met on November 7th, 2007, and it was a blind date. So we both had a mutual friend who we knew for years, but didn't introduce us until I was traveling through San Francisco for work. And she said she didn't. This was like we weren't on Facebook. Like this was like pre all that stuff. And she said you had similar temperaments. We're like, what the hell does that mean?
I think it means we're both really, really tall.
Yes. So we had a blind date at a wine bar in the marina in San Francisco, which ironically, like, is a place in a million years neither of us would go to.
It's a little cheesy.
And ended up and we were chaperoned. Like, our friend was there for like 4 hours. Ended up probably having a little bit too much wine, and then we just ended up talking, and then went to very unwellnessy, but like went to have we got donuts together, probably like 3 or 4 a.m. And what was so interesting, or not, I didn't even ask for Colleen's number at the end of the night, and I didn't even like try to do anything, which was very unlike me at the time. But it was because, like, I would say I had some sense of knowing that this was special and I would see her again. And then, of course, I woke up the next morning and just reached out to our dear friend, Caroline, who set us up, and said, give me Colleen's number. And I just called her. So, like, and then, which was like another like rule break, like something I would not do. I probably would have waited a week to reach back out.
I talk a lot about understanding the masculine and feminine energies, not only within ourselves, because we all have masculine and we all have feminine energy. And then that kind of plays out in our relationship as well, in all of our relationships, to be honest. So how does this show up for you guys?
So one of the things that I think is really interesting about Jason is he was really raised by 2 women. So he was raised by his mom, and he was raised by his grandma, who also lived with him. And I think that makes him much more in touch with his feminine energy than other people. He was always someone who could talk about love and open up in a way that no other man I had met before him was able to do with such vulnerability.
How do you live and work together? What are your boundaries? What are your tips? How do you guys do it?
It's a work in progress. We actually do it quite well. And I think there are a few reasons why it works for us. One, our skill sets are very different and in a way are very unique and complement each other in a way that, collectively as a unit, we benefit Mind, Body, Green in a much bigger and better way. And we really fill each other out, which is extraordinarily, I think, unique. And we've been told that before. I also think for us, we're so passionate about wellness and what we do. It would be hard for us to, as I joke, like I couldn't be married to a civilian. so to speak. Like, I don't shut off. This is our life. Some of our closest friends are, some of the members of the My Body Green Collective, who we've known for years. We've been to weddings. We've seen divorces. We've seen babies. Like, some of our closest contributors or some of our closest friends. For us, there is no separation. In terms of like our relationship, that's a big part of it.
What's the biggest thing that challenges you most within your relationship, and how do you work through that?
I would say we work too much, like, without a doubt. Like,
for sure.
We, as I said, we're so passionate about what we do. We have close to 50 employees. We're growing. We've got multiple businesses within one business. So it's work. We work a lot.
Yeah. But it's not just, the time that we spend working, but how do we make sure that we
find time for ourselves?
Yeah. Find times for ourselves. And, I think the obvious place to go is, you're passionate about doing wellness stuff. A lot of times when we do things we're really passionate about, it can seem like work. Because it could be, going to a yoga class and we're like, wait, are we going to this class? Because
well, it's hard. So, like, for example, we went to a museum this weekend, and museum has really nothing to do with wellness, but in the same way, like, everything has to do with wellness.
Yeah.
So, like, we're at a museum and you start thinking about, like, creatively, like, we could do this or that, or that's interesting, or I have an idea. So it's just like hard to, even when you get away from it, so to speak, it's there living and breathing within you. Relationship. So I think for us, it's just like being mindful of there were a good 3 years or so, 4 years or so, like, that we existed before we both started working together, and like those interests and passions and everything outside of wellness, just like making time for that and finding time away from things that aren't wellness per se is important for us.
Are there any common misconceptions that the public might have about you guys as a couple?
I think we're pretty transparent. we definitely, we're very open that we work a lot. We're very open that, this is a work in progress. We're not perfect. We don't just hang out and do yoga all the time. We're very open with, like, the struggles of being an entrepreneur and growing a business. Those are all things, like, our relationship's not perfect. Working together is not always fun, but we love what we do.
I think something that we also try to be real about is, our lives are not the perfect picture of wellness. We eat really well during the week, and then on the weekends we enjoy food.
Are there any other things that you guys do to consciously keep it fresh and new?
It's hard. And I think what makes it hard to keep it fresh and new is a 16-month-old daughter. I think for us, it's like consciously, so we travel a lot, but when we travel, it's trying to find time alone, whether that means a sitter or just like some time alone, or if we're traveling for work just up and around New York, like, can we find time within that travel to just like have a meal together or have a drink together? Or it's just, if so much of our day is Colleen, Jason, and My Body Green, and then it's Colleen, Jason, and Ellie, our daughter. So the trick for us is like, how do we find time where it's just Colleen and Jason, sans My Body Green and sans Ellie? And
I think we've also realized that we don't have to set the bar so high. So I think saying like a date night it can be a little overwhelming. Like, that involves finding a sitter, getting the sitter, 3 hours with the sitter. So what we've been doing lately is if we have a meeting in Midtown, so Midtown to us, we live in Brooklyn, is like a whole other universe. Like, we joke, we need to bring our passport there. It's like going on a new adventure. So we had like a meeting that ended at 4:30, and we're like, we're gonna just have drinks and start dinner at 4:45, because then we're only like 15 minutes late when we get back to Brooklyn around 6:30.
just spontaneity in general. Like it's good for relationships. It's good for life. It's good for everything. It's just something to just never lose sight of, especially in a relationship. And I think it's often someone who we love at Mind Body Green is Dr. Sue Johnson, who wrote an amazing book called Love Sense. And in that book, she talks about, it's like, so what happens with relationships and when they go south, it's typically like not one like big event. It's a series of things that break down over the years. It's a slippery slope. So like this idea of communication, of intimacy, of spontaneity, it's like generally like little things that just like slowly erode over time. And then you wake up at that moment of like, what the fuck happened? Or like, I'm not in love, or, I cheated. And it's like, it's a slow erosion. And I think.
So how important is that soulful intimacy and that heart-to-heart connection and soulful sex in your relationship?
It's very important, but definitely takes a back seat when you have a 16-month-old and the reality of like the challenge of having a child and like what that does to sex and your sex life and all that goes on, from the moment of childbirth to
actually before childbirth, pregnancy.
From pregnancy to nursing to sleeping and all that stuff. Like, not gonna lie, it definitely having a child is not the best thing for one's sex life. So it's something, I think in a lot of ways, these little things and there are crazy statistics that like a lot of relationships like end around childbirth. I want to say, at 16 months, Ellie is coming out of that phase. So, but it's a challenge when you have a child. Time and sleep and energy are not things we have a lot of.
How do you guys make sure that you fill yourselves up and you're looking after yourselves so that you can show up as the best partner for each other?
I think it looks different for both of us. I think, for me, my wellness practice keeps me sane, if you will. So that's meditation daily. I used to do 20 minutes. Now it's more like 5. I go to the gym in our building a couple days a week for 10 minutes. I do yoga on the weekends for 10 to 15 minutes. I walk everywhere. I take the stairs everywhere. Like, I am a walker. I will walk. And then I'll do things that are, in terms of like getting my head out of wellness and like finding joy, so to speak. Like, I love basketball still. Like, I'll watch the NBA. The playoffs are on right now. Like, I'll watch those games, and I really love watching professional basketball. And I'll have Ellie and watch it with her, or I'll read a book. That brings me joy. That's something that, for me personally, like allows me a little bit of space to like fill me up, if you will. And shiatsu, and I do Reiki and some other things that get the other week as well.
I fully believe that you have to be in a good place before you can give to your partner, to your company, to your family, to your children. And one of the things that I've really realized over the past 16 months is how the internet, particularly Instagram, talks about self-care. It hasn't really resonated for me. It's not real in any way. It typically involves long candlelit baths with rose petals, in the water, and especially with the constraints on our time right now, that's just not realistic. And I don't think most women have time for that. So I think, especially post-child, it's really being judicious about looking at the KPI, so to speak, of how do you feel after you make that investment? Like, do you feel better after going to that type of activity, or is it just a drain on you?
What do you guys attribute your relationship success to? And I'm saying success, you're still together. What do you attribute that to?
I think it's a couple things. One, we both want our relationship to succeed. So I think we work on our relationship, because in any relationship, it takes two people. And if one person doesn't want to work, like, that's a problem. I also think we're true partners in the sense of the word. Like, we're partners in life and we're partners in business. Like, we are true partners. And that is a big thing. I think some relationships don't necessarily start that way or start that way, but take twists and turns. And one person feels like they're not necessarily a partner. So I think it's this idea of like working, understanding communication styles too is a big thing. We communicate very differently, and understanding how we communicate is a thing. Understanding each other's, pain points, so to speak, in life and business. So like one example is like, I am like I'm probably a little too comfortable with like risk. Colleen is not so much. Just understanding that and like, is a thing. But I would say like overall, it's this idea of like, we're truly partners.
So what is one thing that you're each working on or would like to improve within yourself at the moment? Is there anything that is quite current that you're working on?
A lot of what I'm working on has to do with compartmentalizing things. Like, running a business can be an exhilarating journey, as you know. There's really great highs and there can be lows too. And I think I'm always very good about not celebrating the highs too much, but I can take the lows really personally. Human resources stuff keeps me up at night. And these are all really important things because they involve people, but I'm not so skilled at being like, this is really important, I'm going to focus on it tomorrow. I'm more of a ruminator. No matter how much meditation, no matter how many candles I light at night, like, I know my brain likes to spin. So I'm working on stopping that spin cycle.
And I would say for me, it's our new imposed morning rule and evening rule. So whether it's,
Jason's violated it many times.
I tend to violate those rules around work. I'm always thinking. So I'm definitely working on not talking about work until 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. or whatever that number is, or 10 p.m. at night. Like that's my big. I have room for improvement there.
I've gotten really good at putting my phone downstairs. We live in a duplex, and I think that separation, that physical separation from the phone, has been really helpful for me.